Welcome to Nasdaq TradeTalks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining us for this segment, we have Sara Mehle, Index Research Strategist at Nasdaq Global Indexes, to discuss tracking the water industry through an index. Sara, it's great to see you as always. Welcome back to Trade Talks, and there certainly is an index for everything, isn't there?
Oh, Jill, there sure is. So today we're talking about the ISE Clean Edge Water Index. This is an index that doesn't track water directly, but we're looking at tracking the performance of companies that derive a substantial portion of their revenues from the potable water and wastewater industry. Potable meaning any water that's safe to eat or drink, so not just necessarily tap water. We partner with Clean Edge here on this particular index. We're looking at those companies that are involved in utilities and water distribution, infrastructure, think of those pumps, pipes, and valves, water solutions, purification and filtration, and ancillary services such as consulting, construction, and metering. We have, some of those typical liquidity screens just to make it into this particular index. So again, and the most, unique here is just that they must derive a substantial portion of the revenues from the potable and wastewater industry. Again, leaning on Clean Edge here for that research. And then when we look at the breakdown currently of what is in this index, there are 36 stocks, the majority being industrials. I think that's probably more, expected, but we also see utilities exposure, healthcare through Danaher, basic materials, technology, and consumer staples. So some other, industries that you might not necessarily directly associate with water companies. And the ISE Clean Edge Water Index is tracked by the First Trust Water ETF, and that is symbol FIW.
What does performance look like?
Before jumping directly into performance, I guess performance is related here in this particular chart. Looking just kind of at a fundamental angle here, we do see strength from the index in terms of its fundamental picture. So we looked at the 36 names and we separated them into 4 buckets in terms of their earnings expectations. Were they expected to fall, be negative, rise below 100%, or rise above 100%? And so the majority of the index, 93%, is expected to experience earnings growth. So 32 of those 36 names, and 30 of those 32, 26 are expected to rise double digits. So we've seen positive average performance in these 2 particular buckets so far, 4.8% and 10.3%. And we're also seeing strong performance, from even those stocks that are categorized in that falling bucket. The negative performance there, negative 19.6%. That is, kind of an alarming number, but I will say that is only represented by 1 stock here, accounting for less than 1% of the index, and that is the worst performing name here. But overall, from a fundamental perspective, we are seeing that strength. And then, as you mentioned, just looking at returns, year to date, this index is up 5.62% through March 31st. So looking back at the end of last month, and when we compare that to some benchmarks, think of the total Nasdaq, the Nasdaq US Benchmark Total Return Index, looking also at just the Industrials Index and Utilities Index. And we can see that on a 1-year, 3-year, 5, 7, and 10-year, that this index is outperforming those particular indexes. You would think that this might move in line with utilities or with industrials, especially because of that overweight. But we do see that, separating these companies that are involved in this water industry really have shown some strength over the years. So the best performing name so far this year is Algonquin Power and Utilities, up over 30.5%, and that accounts for 3.3% of the index. While the worst performing is Montrose Environmental Group, and again, that's that stock that's down 19%, but again, only accounts for a lot less than 1% here. But water, this is an interesting and unique way to track the water industry, and again, those names that are involved in the potable and wastewater industry. And like I said, the First Trust Water ETF, FIW, tracks this particular index, and we'll see where this takes us. But interesting outlook here for water.
Yeah, it certainly is. And Sara, before we let you go here, let's just pull up that last chart so we can get a better illustration of what it looks like relative to benchmark and see how it's reflective. And what's such a unique industry. You typically don't think of the industry of water, if you will.
Absolutely, and that's why we don't have an exact apples to apples benchmark to compare it here. But the second column that we're looking at here, that's the Nasdaq US Benchmark Total Return Index. So that's looking at all sectors and all industries. The next one over is separating out the industrial names, and then the fourth column over is separating out those utilities names. So, while industrials and utilities are down over the last year, over 1%, we're seeing the water index is down 50 basis points. So when we look on a 3-year horizon, 22.1%. Compared to 18.4 and 10.7, and then the numbers are very similar as we go out and expand all the way through 10 years. So we are seeing again that when we separate those names outside of the industrials and outside of just all broad utilities, it does paint a very interesting picture here.
All right, Sarah, appreciate the insight as always. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.